Hi lovelies, and welcome back to Conscious Sexuality, Tantric Tuesdays, conscious relationshiping, connection, intimacy. I've been away for about, 6 months or so now, doing groundless ground stuff. So today I am gonna talk to you about where I went and what I learned along the way, lots of stuff, and give you a little book review from a book by the Gottmans called I love prescriptions. So here we are. I'm back. It's Tantric Tuesdays. Let's shoot the shit about this book. But before we do, I need to make myself a coffee so I can make some coherent sentences. All right, see you in a sec. Okay, so last year my partner and I decided to go totally off-roading with life and our relationship and our entire world from tip to tail. We moved from the city, sold our whoopee of a house that we had remodeled every room and nook and cranny in for 17 years, and moved to the countryside and decided to get a bug up our butt and general contract the build of a house ourselves while we were working and living in a tiny house trailer at the time, totally downsized. So turned out great though, there we go, but total fucking groundless ground year. And this is what we learned along the way, some pretty awesome things. First, all of the practices that we had done were so worth it. All of the work and the relationshiping and the intimacy building was so worth it, because that skill and that intimacy was something we could fall into the groove of, and it just held us in such a sweet space. And were we always perfect at it? No, sometimes we were a shit show, but more often than not, and more often than we would have been 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we were able to come together and not only just tool through that groundless ground process and just like keep pushing through, but like enjoy some of the journey along the way. So we tried to do two things: not let our intimacy and connection and sex and joy and pleasure be pushed to the back burner, which is the first thing that happens when big change happens, whether it's change that you choose or it's change that life slaps you in the face with, right? So we tried to not let that, the energy and the joy and the juice that you get from that deep connection and pleasure and joy, we tried to let that feed us and ride the wave of that through all of this change. That was very nice to have. And then two, we tried to be kind to each other through this process, because we knew we were both freaking out, and individually and collectively freaking out. And we're like, what did we do? What did we just do? We just did all these big things, and we don't really know what we're doing, and we're planning to build on rock ground, and we've never done this before. It was a lot of unknown, beginner's mind, don't know shit. And were we kind to each other always? No. And sometimes we saw old habit patterns rise to the surface that we could see. But more often than not, we were kind, and we learned, had we done this 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 20 years ago before we had done this work on our relationship and shined our attention and energy in our relationship to really boost it and start it on fire, then we wouldn't have been able to hold these deep spaces. When one of us had bandwidth and the other one didn't, we stepped up for each other, and it was more often than not a total shit show. And when you're going through stress cycles, like through this process, it was constant stress cycle, and hit the ground running for an entire year of like stress cycles. And they were hitting us so fast that we weren't able to complete the stress cycle and release. And we had to learn that kind of along the way, and towards the end we were like, oh, that's what we're experiencing. Like we could use to find other tools, which is another video I'll do in another day, of releasing all these constant stress cycles. But sometimes they hit you so fast, you're just like in the moment of them, and you don't have time to process them. So that's what leads me to what I'm going to talk to you about today. Was when we were done and the dust settled, we looked at each other and went, okay, how do we turn towards each other and rest and repair and find an equilibrium and see, it's like you level up and then you're like, okay, we're up here now, let's chill out for a bit, see what we learned, integrate it, come back together, turn towards each other, learn a new, deeper way of being with each other. And that's we used and we are using and tooling through this book by the Gottmans. Awesome couple who have been relationshiping themselves for decades and decades. I think one or both of them are therapists, and so they work with people and couples, and they're like the coolest researchers. They're sitting on like a treasure trove. Other researchers come to them to get research. Other book writers come to them to get research. A treasure trove of witnessing, observing couples in the moment, fighting, coming back together, giving bids for affection and attention. What do they do in their daily life? They get in thousands and thousands of hours they've observed couples. And so when I heard about this book on a podcast, it was like ding, 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 because they distilled, the other part of the title of that book is 7 days to deeper, more intimacy and deeper joy and pleasure or whatever in your relationship. So they distilled all of their work for decades down to 7 things. And I can say we're on 3, we're starting on 4. And so far the first 4 that we've heard, not only are they practical, they're useful, and they get you outside the scope of the normality of the way we look at those topics. Like the first one was like mind-blowing, looking at bids for affection or bids for attention that you do and that your partner does on a daily basis that you're not even paying attention to, that you do either haphazardly or dysfunctionally or in weird ways, and you're like, oh, I didn't even know that was a sweet little bid for attention that they do, and I love it, and it's so cute. And it's mind-blowing. When we got that and we worked through that for a week or two, because we're taking our time with this process and being kind and letting each other go at their own pace. But when we started to work through that, we noticed, oh, Charlie, our Charlie dog, he's doing a bid for attention. And we started to notice, oh, and then we got to connect with strangers and friends and family. We're like, oh, that's a bid for affection or attention. That was like mind blower, just that one thing. If that's all we got out of this book, it would have been a mind bender, right? But no, there are more things that we went through. The second one was a practice that I think many people and couples find very challenging. And oftentimes they don't even know it because they just skip right over it. And that's asking for something that would be helpful or that you need to support you. I like one of us noticed, oh, I can totally ask, what can I help you with today? I can support and do that. But when it came to asking, you're like, ooh, can I have? What do I ask? I don't even know what to ask for. Is that even So that was also a mind bender, opening up to just seeing these topics that you see at a cursory level, but actually getting in and playing with them and doing them. And they're so simple and they're so easy to put into place. The book is like a really short book, a simple distillation. It's short, practical, to the point, useful tools that you can implement on a dime. And it doesn't take months or decades to learn or change or grow from them. They're just that's the way the book was written. So they did kind of a brilliant job in that respect. And that's what I love about Kasia Urbaniak's book. I learned that was like a mind bender moment where I was reading through her book Unbound. And she said, oftentimes people just ask for these big things, like, I want this big thing to change in our relationship. And then you're like, I must drop that right there. Your partner's like, well, do we not do that? What am I doing wrong? How do I do that? I want more intimacy and connection in our relationship. Or I want more romance. Or I want more physical contact. Or what? And it's like, well, okay, give me brass tacks. How do we do that? And she gives 2 examples in her book. And one's a partner coming back from a trip a work trip, and they're like, I'm gonna feel so loved and held and sexy and want to connect with you after I get home and have gotten out of a bath and had a glass of wine. Thank you so much for doing that for me, you know. Or I'm gonna be so excited when you make a reservation Thursday night for this restaurant, and I get to sit with you and sip wine with you and flirt with you under the table and put my hands on your thighs and whatever. Like, get fucking specific about things, people, right? And that's what I love about this book, is like, it's specific, practical things that you can do. And then the third one that I'll talk to you about, because we're just starting on the fourth one. The third one is thank you, fucking thank you, gratitude, thank you. Your partner, I've learned, and this was a mind bender, does so many more things for you and your relationship than you ever give them credit for, than you ever see, because you see it every day and it drops into the mundane, right? And we often give thank yous. We thank our partner, we're grateful to our partner for like, oh, thank you for doing that. But it's like surface level thank you, like, oh yeah, thank you for doing that. And I do this, this, and this. And we can get tit for tatty about it. Or we can forget how much goes into that one task that we just expect them to do because they've been doing for a long time, right? In every relationship, like, she does this and he does this, or they do this and I do this, right? And it's just kind of expected once you start doing it, and you just feel like you're going through the motions and not appreciated, and then they don't see you, and you don't see the shit they do. And it was so beautiful. This little tiny half-hour chapter, I listened to it while I was commuting, and then I stopped before I went into this meeting and I just meditated on it for about 10 or 15 minutes. And the way they have you do this is brilliant. Like, you look at the nooks and crannies and the details of what your partner really does, and then you're like, oh shit, that little mundane task, like taking out the garbage or dropping the kids off to school or making coffee in the mornings, there's a lot that goes into that. And I never even saw that they did that or appreciated that or that or that or that. So when I was done, after I meditated, I gave a little video memo to my partner, because we do this every once in a while. We send little videos back and forth just randomly in our day. And I was just like, thank you for this, and thank you for this, and thank you for this, and I totally forgot that you did this, and I never even recognized that you did this, and thank you. And not only thank you, but in the way you do it. Like my partner, he's amazing. He like hangs shit and he pulls the level out and he gets him perfect, exactly right. And he'll put him in, like, he's so meticulous about it. And I would just be like, slap the nail up on the wall, hang the picture up, and walk the fuck away. But so I'm like, thank you for taking the time to make things hang like magic in our home. And I know that it's hung well. It's not going to fall off the walls. If I hung it, it would fall off the walls, right? So it was just like noticing the details, right? I think I did do a Tantric Tuesdays a while back. The pleasures in the details, right? The gratitudes in the details, right? Like noticing, I see you. That's intimacy. I see you. And I see how you do it. And it's so sweet and cool and sexy, and there's an intimacy that gets built. So we haven't tooled through the rest of the book, but we are thoroughly enjoying it. And even if we only got those 2-3 pieces, it would be amazing. So yeah, if you get the book and you tool through it, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it, how you used it with your partner or yourself. And yeah, enjoy. Have a fabulous fucking day.